very good evening to you and welcome for this week's edition of the Political Wrap. Lots going on in the world of politics as usual. My name is Masa Kekana. Let's catch you up with all that happened.
Over the last 2 years, total violent crime for this quarter is down by 8.3%.
The South African police released the third quarter crime statistics, highlighting a drop in murder rates in the country.
We've made it clear as the African National Congress that we are not desperate to be in government.
A midnight reshuffle in the Ekurhuleni Council ruffles feathers and throws the volatile nature of coalition politics into the spotlight.
Every minister and deputy minister is appointed by the president, not on a party political basis, is part of a collective working together to implement a common program.
Ramaphosa reminds GNU partners of their collective responsibility as leaders of government in his reply to the State of the Nation Address debate.
Over the last 2 years, total violent crime for this quarter is down by 8.3%, or 15,763 fewer cases. This trend may well be attributable to enhanced policing operations like Operation Chanele. But despite these welcome national trends, the levels of crime, as I've already indicated, remain unacceptably high. The crime situation also varies substantially across the country. It's very important that we pay attention also to the top priority stations. So when you start to look precinct by precinct, station by station, then you're going to see considerable variation. And there are precincts, certainly in the top 30 stations, where you see significant increases in violent crime. And of course, that is what we must pay attention to.
Now joining us is Lisa Schikkeling, who is a member of the Portfolio Committee on Police from the Democratic Alliance. Lisa, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. It seems some very minimal, but some headway being made when it comes to crime statistics in the advent of murder.
Good evening, Masa, and good evening to all the viewers out there. Yes, I mean, we do welcome the fact that there's a little bit of a decrease, but in reality, South Africans are not measuring safety by percentages. They're measuring it to see whether they survive through the day or not. I mean, we see shifts in the murder rate, and that's wonderful, and we would like it to see a drop in the murder rate. But 6,351 people are still murdered in just 3 months. That's 71 people every single day in our country. And this is not progress. This is not the progress that our communities need. People are living in fear.
Yeah, and as you're saying, Lisa, you know, to reconcile statistics and lived experience sometimes are quite the oxymoron as well. But also, should we take some solace in the fact that this decline is quite consistent since 2023?
Yes, I think we should. I mean, we obviously have to take note of it. I think that there are some measures that the SAPS has put in place and that operations like Chanele do help. But the problem is, with operations like Chanele, a high amount of people are arrested. The problem is that the convictions don't follow. So the perpetrators are just out on the street again. And we need conviction-driven policing in South Africa, because without that, nothing is going to change. We need prosecution-led investigations from the start. We need dockets that are properly prepared. We need proper functioning forensic labs and DNA systems. And we obviously need the ability to link illegal firearms to multiple crimes across the country.
To that point of conviction-driven policing that's needed in South Africa, would you extend that, Lisa, to conviction-driven crime stats as well? So when we look at the number of people who have been murdered in our country, then we also know how many people, how many of those murderers have been convicted, how many of those murderers have faced the court of law, where those investigations went.
Yes, definitely. We definitely need to include that in the statistics that we get given, because it looks like crime is going down, and there is, we can't say it's not. There is definitely an improvement. But as we've said, if we don't know how many actually lead to convictions, it doesn't make any difference, because we have repeat offenders. We have firearms that are just put back into the system again. They're either stolen from the police stations, or they just get somehow go back into the hands of the criminals. And these are the things that we have to combat. We have to make sure that we make South Africa safer. And another problem we're sitting with is, while we sit with the crime statistics, many crimes are underreported. Rape is vastly underreported. Contact crime is vastly underreported. Even normal theft is underreported, because most of the times there's no conviction. So people don't even care to actually go to the police station to go and lay a complaint against somebody, because most of the time their cases either just get thrown out of court, or there's no conviction, and they lose faith in the system. And I think that is exactly what has happened.
You know, when you're talking about also the crimes of rape and sexual assault as well, and talking about those convictions as well that are quite minimal, I think to take it an extra layer as well, we could even add just how victims and survivors of sexual offences are treated by the criminal justice system, for a case to go through the system, and maybe there needing to be an overhaul, not only to getting more of those convictions, but how we actually get there. Much of the criticism has been that for victims facing these kinds of cases in our courts of law, they face, you know, re-victimization as well. So an overhaul of how we actually treat specifically GBV.
Definitely, I agree with you. You know, I have so many survivors that contact me that go through the system, and they lose faith. And I understand why they lose faith. I mean, you go to a police station to report a crime of sexual abuse or of GBV, and then you are ridiculed. And most often than not, it's actually the female police officers that are rude to these victims. Then you have to sit for months through court cases. You have to look your perpetrator in the eye the whole time. Often protection orders are not served. Most of the time, protection orders are not served. So there's actually no outcome for these people. And I mean, I feel so sorry for victims of gender-based violence, because it's just a system that's perpetuating. Nothing is getting better. Every year we have 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, and we have these beautiful speeches, and everybody goes to parliament, and South Africa does something, and the police have an action for 16 days. But at the end of the day, the rape just increases. I mean, 5 women are raped every hour in our country. That is a clear indication that the processes that we have in place to combat GBV is not worth it. It's not happening. People have lost faith, and it's not a viable situation that we're in at the moment.
And while you're saying that the process is clearly not viable and working effectively, the acting police minister said that the police will intensify efforts to deal with GBV crimes. Now, for any ordinary South African listening to the stats of sexual assaults that take place in this country, and then listening to the acting police commissioner saying that they will intensify efforts, is this something that people can take refuge in, or it's something that we've heard before?
Well, I hope that it is something that we can take refuge in. But from what my experience is, I've heard this story before. The previous police minister, or I don't know if he's still the Minister of Police, Minister Mkhunu, he also said we were going to put social workers into every police station. And that was 1.5 years ago, and nothing has happened since then. We've heard that the GBV Council was supposed to be established. Only recently were board members put into place. So how serious are we? The forensic services in our country have a backlog of 140,000 samples. So how serious are we about combating crime when we're sitting with with forensic labs that are not producing the work that they should be producing because those perpetrators are just out on the street? How do we not know that more is going on? And without people actually going to report the cases, and as I've said to you, rape is one of the most underreported statistics that there is in our country. We actually do not know what's going on. And until we fix the system, people will continue not going to report crimes.
Yeah. Moving to another aspect of the crime stats as well that is quite a challenge is organized crime. Now, when we look at the crime stats as well, it can't adequately deal with organized crime. It's not quite often that, for these kinds of crimes that people just go into an ordinary police station to lay these complaints. They're far more complex. So what picture does it paint for us if we don't really holistically know what our organized crime stats truly look like?
Well, I mean, that is a massive concern. And we know that organized crime has taken over South Africa. You just have to look at the Madlanga Commission. You have to look at what's happening in the ad hoc committee. And you can see that our country is overrun with organized crime. And I welcome the fact that the president and the minister said that they are now going to call in SARS to assist them to make sure that we track money more adequately and to see where funds are going. But it's a very complex situation, and our police system as it is at this stage, and the DPCI included, the Hawks, they're not fully equipped to investigate these crimes. At this stage, the DPCI has a vacancy rate of 56%. And we have to ensure that we employ people into these vacancies and that we have the correct people in places to actually investigate these crimes. And that's the most important thing, is that we actually have capable people in places to investigate crimes, because without that and without the proper systems, we're actually going nowhere.
Absolutely. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Really appreciate it. That was Lisa Schikkeling, who is a member of the Portfolio Committee on Police. Now, suspended Deputy National Police Commissioner Shadrack Sibiya conceded to implementing his own action plan when withdrawing 121 dockets from the KZN Political Killings Task Team. Sibiya also admitted that this withdrawal of active dockets possibly had detrimental effects on the cases and could have been handled differently. Being backed into a corner under cross-examination, Sibiya resorted to crying foul and claiming bias in the way he was being questioned. Newzroom Afrika's Junior Khumalo reports.
Seemingly feeling the heat, under cross-examination, suspended Deputy Police Commissioner Shadrack Sibiya on Friday lamented the line of questioning from the Madlanga Inquiry's commissioners. Sibiya, who was struggling to respond to questions on numerous occasions, suggested he was subjected to unfair interrogation.
I feel oppressed, Chair.
No, feel free to comment.
I feel oppressed in a sense that this is an official process. It's not a private process, it's an official process coming from the minister to the national commissioner to me. We are all in it. Now, when the national commissioner chose to do something with General Khumalo, which he never alerted me to, he never said to me, leave it, I will do it, and then went and did it somewhere with General Khumalo.
Sibiya kept deploying the crying foul modus operandi at each turn when he was seemingly unwilling to clarify inexplicable instructions he gave during the attempts to disband the KZN Political Killings Task Team.
Why you have a difficulty with that?
One of the commissioners, Sesi Baloyi, took exception with Sibiya's insistence that he had done nothing untoward but merely followed an instruction from the National Police Commissioner in implementing a phased-out action plan for the PKTT. Baloyi pointed to an email sent from the National Police Commissioner, Fanny Masemula's office. She highlighted that in no part of the email does Masemula give such an instruction.
What I'm putting to you is SS9 doesn't give you that instruction, so you acted without instruction, because that's what you're relying on. It follows. you acted without instruction, and that's what it is, General.
Sibiya reluctantly agreed that no such directive was issued to him by either the Minister on Special Leave, Senzo Mchunu, or Masemula. The evidence leader attempted to demonstrate to Sibiya the real-life consequences his unilateral directive had.
Dockets sitting in head office for that length of time, not being investigated, is an interference with the administration of justice. And you said you would not agree with that.
From the neutral perspective, I agree with it. From a person who's neutral watching.
With the evidence leader and commissioners not backing down, Sibiya all but considered that his decision to implement a phased-out strategy was not in accordance with the instruction given to him.
General, can we just agree that you were not implementing the action plan, you were implementing your own plan? Can we just agree on that?
I will agree.
On Monday, Sibiya is set to continue his testimony before the Madlanga Commission. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Junior Kumalo in Pretoria.
The ANC in Ekurhuleni has hit back at the EFF in the region after it threatened that it would support any motion of no confidence made against any ANC leader. The party disputes ejecting EFF members from a mayoral committee following the late-night reshuffle by Executive Mayor Nkosindiphile Xakaza earlier this week. Now, instead, it says the Red Berets could not be allocated more positions despite holding no wards in the region. It has also lambasted the EFF, accusing it of forcing Action SA to make a U-turn following engagements about making its member, Xolani Khumalo, the MMC for Community Services and Bylaw Enforcement. Newzroom Africa's Zoleka Kodashe has the details.
The fragile balance of coalition politics is once again under strain in the city of Ekurhuleni metropolitan, as tensions between the ANC and the EFF spill over yet again. This time prompted by a late-night mayoral committee shake-up by Executive Mayor Nkosindiphile Xakaza that saw the EFF with fewer positions in the mayor's team.
They had a belief that in view of the fact that the ANC did not get an absolute majority, therefore they are equal to the African National Congress, a notion that we dismiss to the extent that the allocation in terms of seats must represent proportional representation. We've made it clear as the African National Congress that we are not desperate to be in government at the expense of the coalition principles and the framework as adopted by the National Executive Committee of the ANC. We have urged the principle of proportional representation and commitment to coordinated manner of government, to which the EFF has actually been allergic to.
This is not the first time the two parties have locked horns. When the EFF's Ntabiseng Chivenga resigned as council speaker in December last year, the EFF expected that she would be replaced by another EFF member. Instead, the ANC fielded its own candidate. Now the latest move by the ANC has seen the EFF vow to support any motion of no confidence tabled against ANC provincial chairperson and Gauteng Premier Banyazali Sufi and withhold their support for the upcoming budget. But this is not the only relationship that has seemingly soured. When Xakaza announced his new MMCs, he included Action SA controversial figure Xolani Khumalo, but the Green Party did not take kindly to the appointment and rejected the designation.
With regards to the Action SA, we wish to inform you that out of numerous engagements, we did extend an invite for Action SA to participate in the mayoral committee, to which they rejected, as we saw in their media statement. The African National Congress wished to equally reject the notion by the Action SA that their rejection is on the basis of not wanting to join a failing government. which in our view is not the case, as the city of Ekurhuleni continues to function despite what was an era of maladministration, mismanagement, and coordinated, compromised good governance practices.
And the blame for Action SA's U-turn has been placed at the door of the Red Berets.
The Action SA, in our view, was threatened by the EFF in that if they take up the positions in the city of Ekurhuleni, the EFF will therefore withdraw its support against their mayor in Tshwane.
Despite the political standoff, the ANC says the door to cooperation remains open. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Zoleka Kotashe in Germiston, Ekurhuleni.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says now is not the time to abandon black economic empowerment, but to make it more effective. Responding to the two-day State of the Nation address debate in Parliament, the president firmly defended BEE despite criticism from opposition parties. Newzroom Afrika's reporter Nasipi Same filed this report.
President Cyril Ramaphosa used his reply to the SONA debate to draw a clear line on black economic empowerment. During last week's address, he announced a review of the BEE framework to ensure greater inclusion and economic growth, but made it clear the policy itself cannot be abandoned.
We're here for true reform.
The DA's Deputy Chief Whip, Baxolile Nodada, told Parliament his party would challenge BEE and replace it with its own empowerment model.
This issue touches a very raw nerve in me, because it is one of the principal issues that we sought to get rid of from this country, the inequality and the exclusion of black people from participating in the economy of the country. The average income of white households is still nearly 5 times higher than that of black African households. This is the gulf that we must close through deliberate and sustained efforts to expand opportunity. This is the gulf that we must close through the economic empowerment of those who were prevented from accessing those opportunities. Now is not the time to abandon black economic empowerment.
The president also set firm boundaries for political parties in the government of national unity.
Every minister and deputy minister is appointed by the president not on a party political basis, is part of a collective working together to implement a common program to medium-term development plan. So no minister or deputy minister should be publicly claiming their work in the GNU as an achievement of their party. In many cases, the basis for their achievements were laid before they even came into office.
While acknowledging criticism, Ramaphosa insisted government has made measurable progress despite difficult economic and governance challenges.
There can be no doubt that we have made progress. Even those that deny that we have made progress know that we have made progress. Over 30 years, we have fundamentally improved the lives of South Africans. Over the last 8 years, our country faced some of the most intractable and difficult challenges. But working together, we have undertaken a program of institutional renewal by stabilizing what was weakened through state capture, restoring integrity and accountability, and rebuilding the capacity of the state to serve the people of South Africa.
For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Nasipi Same in Parliament.
The United States Supreme Court has set aside President Donald Trump's sweeping global tariffs. The highest court in the U.S. ruled that Trump exceeded his authority by imposing those tariffs on global trade. The majority court ruling says the International Emergency Economic Powers Act does not authorize the president to impose tariffs. The ruling, however, doesn't include sector-specific tariffs on imports of steel, aluminium, and various other goods. But for now, let's take you live to the United States as Trump reacts to that ruling.
Be interested in protecting. That's what they're supposed to be protecting. But I am allowed to cut off any and all trade or business with that same country. In other words, I can destroy the trade. I can destroy the country. I'm even allowed to impose a foreign country-destroying embargo. I can embargo. I can do anything I want, but I can't charge $1. Because that's not what it says. And that's not the way it even reads. I can do anything I want to do to them, but I can't charge any money. So I'm allowed to destroy the country, but I can't charge them a little fee. I could give them a little two-cent fee, but I cannot charge under any circumstances. I cannot charge them anything. Think of that. How ridiculous is that? I'm allowed to embargo them. I'm allowed to tell them you can't do business in the United States anymore. We want you out of here. But if I want to charge them $10, I can't do that. It's incorrect. Their decision's incorrect. But it doesn't matter because we have very powerful alternatives that have been approved by this decision. You know, they've been approved by the decision for those that thought they had us. And they're saying that I have the absolute right to license, but not the right to charge a license fee. So think of that. I have the right to license, which is a very powerful word. In many ways, license is more powerful than tariffs. In fact, I was thinking about using it. But they came up with the idea that I can license, just like the people that were opposing me told them to do, but not the right to charge a license fee. Think of that. Who ever heard of such a thing? What license has ever been issued without the right to charge a fee? You get a license, you charge a fee. It's automatic, but not with this court. But now the court has given me the unquestioned right to ban all sorts of things from coming into our country, to destroy foreign countries, but a much more powerful right than many people ever thought we even had, but not the right to charge a fee. How crazy is that? Our country is the hottest country anywhere in the world right now. And it was a dead country 1.5 years ago under an incompetent president. But now I'm going to go in a different direction, probably the direction that I should have gone the first time, but I read the language. I'm very good at reading language, and it read our way 100%, but now I'll go the way I could have gone originally, which is even stronger than our original choice. As Justice Kavanaugh, whose stock has gone so up, you have to see, I'm so proud of him, wrote in his dissent, although I firmly disagree with the court's holding today, the decision might not substantially constrain a president's ability to order tariffs going forward. So, think of that. The decision might not substantially constrain. And it doesn't, he's right. In fact, I can charge much more than I was charging. So I'm going to just start. Although I firmly disagree with the court's holding today, the decision might not substantially constrain a president's ability to order tariffs going forward. That's because numerous other federal statutes, which is so true, authorize the president to impose tariffs and might justify most, if not all, of the tariffs issued in this case. Even more tariffs, actually. Those statutes include, think of that, those statutes include, for example, the trade...
And that is the United States President Donald Trump just reacting to the U.S. Supreme Court that has set aside his sweeping global tariffs. He's also questioning the sensibility of the ruling, saying he doesn't agree with it and that it is incorrect. well, of course, we'll be keeping a close eye on those developments as they continue. But after the break, political analyst Dr. Onga Mamtimka and leadership and governance expert Dr. Mazwe Majola join us to unpack some of the stories that have dominated headlines this week. Do stay with us. Welcome back. For a wrap of the week's big politics news, I'm now joined by political analyst Dr. Onga Mamtimka and leadership expert Professor Mazwe Majola. We will begin with the SONA debate. Thank you very much to both of you for joining us this evening. There's so much that has happened in the world of politics, but of course, since the State of the Nation address, the debate as well that took place, and of course, the response by President Cyril Ramaphosa as well. Now, starting with you, Dr. Ongama, because you wrote about some of the encouraging green shoots from the State of the Nation address as well, also citing the investment conference that has achieved 1.5 trillion rand in investment commitments. Just talk to us a little bit about the positives that you picked up.
Yeah, so I thought that the SONA was comprehensive enough, as well as both in terms of width and depth. The president made sure to cover a wide range of issues, including updates on the investment promotion drives that have been undertaken during his presidency, citing the overachievement of the 1.2 trillion target, with government achieving 1.5 in terms of investments, and then a wide range of other aspects that he cited. But my feeling was that while these are really great in terms of, the width and breadth of what the president wanted to write about, and notwithstanding some of the critique that's come from the opposition around some of the very things, such as, for example, the employment schemes. One of the things I am anxious about is the extent to which there is will at a national level to restructure the making and the structure of the South African economy in terms of which provinces or what constitutes the core and a periphery. And I think that the president takes as a given the idea that our economy is concentrated in Joburg, Durban, and Cape Town. And there is no willingness or any grand scale ideas that seek to fundamentally alter that reality, which was manufactured over centuries by apartheid government that wanted to keep provinces like the Eastern Cape, Limpopo, Northwest, Mpumalanga, the Northern Cape, as so-called labor-sending provinces. And I think that unless the government has got a preparedness to fundamentally alter that degrading, understanding or labeling of our provinces as labor-sending provinces is continuously going to stand. We last saw in the mid-90s to early 2000s spatial development initiatives that said broaden the economy outside of these regions, create ports along the Eastern Cape, and then redirect investments towards special economic zones elsewhere. And I think that it's been half-hearted implementation of those. So, Masa, what I'm saying is, while in terms of the given and the known, energy, water, infrastructure, and other things, the president has hit the right notes, it still accepts the fundamental structure of a core and a periphery in South Africa as a given, and that is not going to create jobs at a mass scale.
And speaking about hitting the right notes or not, Prof. Majola, I'd like you to step in on this one, because in the response to the SONA debate, the president said that there's been stabilization of state institutions from state capture. But when one listens to, for instance, the ad hoc committee or the Madlanga Commission, state capture doesn't appear to have gone anywhere. It appears to be alive and well. And I think during the debate, it was the EFF who had said that we speak of 9 wasted years. Those 9 wasted years seem to be continuing.
Oh, yes, I mean, definitely did press right notes. Obviously, it was a balancing act remember that he's got a GNU now, so the different ministers or partners coming from other political parties. So he had to pacify those, but also he had to pacify the markets, touch something that the Labour would say yes, 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 and those who still believe in developmental state. So, try to put everything together so that different stakeholders and interest group can be satisfied. But the million-dollar question is always like, are these things that we are saying, Mr. President, are they implementable? Are they actionable? Because for me, if I were the president, when these cabinet ministers bring these inputs into my speech, because remember that this SONA address, it's made up of different contributions and inputs from different ministries or cabinet ministers. When Minister of Agriculture or Minister of Home Affairs or whatever brings something as a president, as a leader, I would ask that minister, is this thing that you want me to talk about, are these things implementable? Are you sure that they are doable? Are you sure that I must announce these things so that when I come back next year to account, will I say that we said we'll do these things and that this is what we did, this is what we couldn't do because of these reasons. So I think this thing of just bringing the whole litany of items for the sake of trying to loop people that we said we're going to do this and this and this is not helping. More especially, South Africans are no more gullible and no more credulous that you can just say something and then they will take them as they are. They will always say, but you spoke about the smart city in Lenasia a few years ago. Nothing has happened there. You haven't told us why that smart city is not there. Spoke about the university in Ekurhuleni. Till today, nothing has happened. But even though you allowed the Department of Higher Education to come and say we'll build more education, even though in 2020 you spoke about just one university, which is still not yet accomplished. So it's important that say something as a president, but say something that you know. That obviously, we are not prophets. We live in a very dynamic and volatile environment. So you may predict something or you may want to do something or find that you are prevented by certain factors. But it must be when you report, it must be something that you be able to say, we really wanted to do this, but we couldn't do it because of certain reasons. So I think that the speech was good, but obviously, as we are saying that now, it's about whether it will be implementable or not.
And Prof. Majola, before we move on to Ekurhuleni and what's been going on there, I want us to continue to talk about what happened with SONA and the debate, but not necessarily what was said in terms of the the nitty-gritties of the planning and stuff, but the politics behind it. We listened to that delicate balance that you speak of, that the president tried to toe when it comes to the GNU, to speak about shared interests. We also heard from some DA ministers as well, for instance, the Basic Education Minister, Siviwe Gwagube, talking about the GNU, showing how it's possible to work together. However, she did then go and say, for the DA, the moment of entering the GNU, it was not a deportation from its values. And we're seeing that thorn come up when we talk about broad-based economic empowerment and how the DA and the ANC are not seeing eye to eye on this. And the president has said, in fact, this is hitting a raw nerve for him and we cannot accept the status quo historically and as it stands. Looking at this thorn, Prof. Majola, and what the DA is saying, that they will not move from their values, and a stern Ramaphosa saying, we will not be removing BEE. In fact, we should be making it more effective. What message is that sending about this marriage that they're trying to make work, but having this really sore thorn?
Well, yes, I would always say, indeed, it's not easy to manage the GRU. We know that it's a forced marriage. It's a matter of how do you handle or navigate this, what we'll call collaborative competition, that even though we are working together, but we are still having different values, different policies, different interests, serving different constituencies, because it's fair for DA or to DA to say, we've got our own constituencies, they voted us, we promised them this, we sold these policies to them, same applies to ANC and others, but now we are working together, even though we are in this marriage and in this unity, but we cannot forget about those people that we are representing. So that fragility will always be there until, I don't know, until the GNU or the coalition subsides. It will just require that dispassionate leadership and majority for them to handle these things together. Unity does not mean conformity. Unity does not mean unanimity. You know, it does not mean uniformity. That now we are together. It means that we must be alike and do things alike. You know, so they'll always have that, and actually, it's gonna be tested in the few months to come.
Yeah.
When the local government campaign starts, because that is where they're going to hit each other very hard. All of them, they want to win. So even though they work together, they're in this GNU, DA will say certain things about ANC when they are campaigning. ANC will say certain things about DA-led municipalities. IFP will say the same thing in KZN about ANC-led municipality in order to woo voters. So that is the test in terms of, will that test or will that, this unity will stand the test of time?
Yeah, and speaking about that test that will be coming up with the local government elections, after the break, we will also continue talking about local government. We will just have that discussion about that late night cabinet reshuffle in the city of Ekurhuleni. We'll be speaking to our experts to unpack that further. Do stay with us. Welcome back for a wrap of the week's big politics news. I'm still joined by political analyst Dr. Ongama Mtimka and leadership experts Professor Mazwe Majola. Now, Dr. Mtimka, before the break, you know, we heard Prof. Majola talking about these dynamics between this marriage of convenience at a national level and at a local level, and we'll see those dynamics play themselves out with the upcoming local government elections. One has to talk about what happened in the city of Ekurhuleni this week. When you look at this decision by the ANC in that metro, not having quite the majority there either, do you think they shot themselves in the foot, removing the EFF and trying to get the Action SA in, Action SA rejecting them as well? Where does that leave them in that coalition now?
So I think it would be amiss not to have a parting shot on the SONA debate, in the sense that I particularly loved the preparedness of the opposition and how they poked holes in the messaging of the president, especially given the fact that SONAs are not structured in terms of ways to evaluate them. We don't have agreed upon criteria to say the president must speak to these things. So generally, it's what the president wants to write home about. And so it was good to see the preparedness of the opposition, but also the preparedness of the ministers to defend some of the issues around, for example, how policy of the ANC was not unique to the Ramaphosa era as far as the issue of whether or not you partially or wholly privatize some entities, with Ronald Lamola going back to say these were policy decisions of the ANC from the 90s, to say it is on the basis of evidence at a particular time as to what you do with an entity. In Ekurhuleni, it's an interesting case for me, which I'm still searching as to what the actual political strategy of the mayor there is, in the sense that the reshuffle itself doesn't seem to be premised on a viable political basis. Because remember, every political actor takes action mindful of what the reaction is going to be and demonstrates preparedness based on an analysis of how secure they are. And here it's a dubious move in terms of which, on one side, you are sidelining a partner that's not only a partner, by the way, in Ekurhuleni, but also at a provincial government level in terms of the role of the EFF, significantly reducing its portfolios, with a partner that's not that significant and, in fact, denying a role in orchestrating the change. I don't know whether there is a anxiety about the positions that these these parties are using in the municipality ahead of local government elections, and whether the ANC feels it should be rattling the boat so that it minimizes the campaign platform of many of the political parties that going into this election. So it's an interesting move which appears dubious unless there is some political strategy that the leadership there can explain. Incidentally, Julius Malema, speaking in Parliament, is calling on President Ramaphosa to stop benchmarking on just the Western Cape and what the DA does there, and look at how its MMC for infrastructure in Ekurhuleni was receiving an award at the same time as the minister at a national level was taking flack, which I think it may be part of what the ANC wants to minimize there.
And thanks for that parting shot on SONA. But you also mentioned the ripple effect it could have in other metros, particularly in Gauteng, where at a provincial level, the EFF and the ANC are also working together. But the ANC will need the support of the EFF to be able to pass their provincial budget. Now, track back to 2024, when the mayor in Ekurhuleni removed the EFF's Regional Secretary General Nkululeko Dunga from the finance MMC role. Julius Malema came out and said, look, if you don't reinstate him, we will remove all our MMCs across other metros too. That didn't happen. That being said, do you think that the ANC felt a little bit emboldened because they didn't follow through on that threat?
You see, that's exactly why I'm saying, as it appears from the outside, it appears as a dubious move because the political basis for it do not appear viable, in the sense that outside of the EFF, you don't see a keen partner that's saying they're going to give the ANC security. So it may be that it's a game theoretic assessment that says they are unlikely to follow through, but at this stage, it's a game of speculation until information surfaces as to what the mayor is relying on there. And indeed, it's interesting what balancing act has to happen in a coalition environment in South Africa. Because on one level, people who are acting at a local level have got to be mindful of the dynamics in the province as well as nationally when they take political actions. And in fact, it's not uncommon to find intervention within the party that is instigating a particular change. In this case, it may be the ANC intervening from the province should they feel that the EFF may play some cards elsewhere outside of the city of Ekurhuleni. But as I say, it's a game of speculation at the moment, and I haven't been able to get even from the grapevine, which is very reliable, by the way, around ANC politics, as to what actually is at play.
Yeah. Prof, just briefly before I let both of you go, Prof. Majola, we heard from the ANC, they had a briefing today to say that basically it was quite abnormal for the EFF to have 5 seats while they have the same. And they even went as far to say that the EFF mustn't think that we're equal in the city of Ekurhuleni. But also saying that they believe that the only reason why Action SA rejected that post is because the EFF may have threatened them in the city of Tshwane, and that's their belief as to why Action SA didn't join, even though Action SA has stuck to their guns to say they just don't want to be affiliated with what seems to be a failing municipality. What do you make of these developments that have also come out today after that briefing?
Well, I think it's a miscalculated strategy for me for Mayor Kagaza, what he has done. You can see that Red is trying to neutralize EFF. They feel that it's overrepresented there. They had 4 MMCs, and then they reduced them to 2 so that ANC could get 6, and they tried to lure Action SA said with 1, they said no. So it's really going to it's going to punish them a lot. They're going to feel this is not a good strategy for them. For ANC, it's easy to say it's because of Action SA didn't want to join them because of Tshwane. That might be an element of truth in it, of course. Action SA need EFF in Tshwane, so they wouldn't like to offend them because they still need their support with their mayor there. So it's going to be a precarious situation for the ANC, especially provincial legislature. The MEC will be presenting his budget next month. I mean, if EFF is not supporting what is going to happen, and even in Ekurhuleni, they won't be having majority. So yeah, I think definitely it's going to be a very precarious position for them.
A precarious move indeed. Professor Majola, Dr. Mtimka, I appreciate both your insights so much. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And that's how we wrap the political wrap for this week. From me, Masa Kekana. It is bye for now.